And today I welcome Marina Byezhanova to the show. So Marina is a global speaker, co-founder and CEO of Brand of a Leader, a personal branding agency with international reach. Having spoken on stages across North America, Europe, Asia and the Middle East, she has traveled to 31 countries, sharing expertise in executive personal branding and thought leadership. She specializes in helping leaders find their authentic voice and scale their impact, driven by a mission to inspire 1 million people to stand out, speak up, and lead with radical authenticity. Marina believes thought leadership is the new marketing currency and an essential tool for modern executives. Disclaimer: any of the guidance offered by the podcast host, myself, or the podcast guests is our own guidance. We are not liable for any of the actions the podcast listener decides to do. Welcome to the show today, Marina. Glad to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me, Johnny. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. So, Marina, helping people really get their voice out in the world, stand out, create their brand. And I'd love to dive a little bit more into what a personal brand is and why that's important as well in this conversation. But first of all, I'd love to know what has inspired you to really help people get their voice out there and really stand out as leaders.
So it all started with my desire to find my own voice. Growing up in what at the time was the Soviet Union, the ultimate, culture of censorship, coming to Canada, not having a voice as an immigrant, always having the difficulty of getting a point across and not feeling heard, feeling that when I stand out, it's not in the way that I want. It's always, used to be, Marina is so interesting, but not in a way that's truly interesting, but in a way is awkward, weird, odd, which is not something that felt authentic, but something that is common to immigrants and their journeys. And so I set off on a journey to find my own voice and stand out in a way that was authentic and find myself. I wasn't calling it, building my personal brand. Essentially, it's what I was doing. But in my eyes, I just wanted to find my voice, understand who I was, and show up authentically, first on smaller stages, and then it ended up being on global stages across the world and all the continents that you listed. So it started off as a completely selfish journey. But what I realized very quickly, Johnny, is that other people who didn't grow up in a culture of censorship or were not immigrants, were not struggling with their mother tongue, with not being English, as it was in my case, were staying pretty invisible and pretty silent. And I was really trying to understand why that was. And as I started having conversations with people, time and time again, I would hear, but what do I have to say that's of value? Why would anyone want to listen to me? Or that nervousness that what if I put myself out there and then met with extreme judgment? And so that set me off on a new journey, which was co-founding Brand of a Leader and helping people, realize their greatness and that they have stories to tell and that there's value in what they have to bring to the world, and B, helping them express that greatness on different platforms and through their own forms of visibility.
And I love that started with you, and then actually you realize you weren't alone in this, and there's so many people out there who are struggling to share their voice. And it's crazy, like just even my own experience, it surprises me sometimes someone who will share that with me. I'm like, but this is a very intelligent, capable person. And
incredible people.
Exactly. With a lot of expertise, a lot of value to add, but yet they're like, I don't want to be seen. I don't want to put my videos out. I don't want to go on that stage. So I love how you discovered there are many other people in that way.
So many. And it's exactly what you say. And we hear and see so many very loud people who don't have much to say. And then to me, it's such a tragedy that all those people who've built incredible companies or have achieved, just remarkable things, have these either powerful stories or just accomplishments, and they feel that what they have to bring to the public is not worthy, versus so many people who are starting out, nothing wrong there. We all started out at some point, but don't have the richness or the credibility of expertise and yet have the confidence to put themselves out there.
No, it's crazy. It's sometimes what you can hear and you think, but the person, like sometimes you can hear stuff and they think, I'm not getting much value, or is that really helping me? But that person's got that like confidence to get out there. And then, like you say, you found the other people.
And what's interesting? A lot of people who stay invisible, stay in the shadows, and usually it's our agency, Brand of a Leader, specifically works with Gen Xers. Often it is Gen Xers. They choose not to put themselves out there, yet they do build and express resentment that they're not the ones that others turn to for expertise, right? They will go to an industry conference and say, who are those people on the panel? I have so much more experience. I have so much more to say. Well, but nobody knows about it, right? So they do want to be recognized for their expertise, yet they remain invisible, which puts other people on those stages, on those panels, and those interviews, or interviewed in the newspaper where something notable is happening in the industry. So they have the resentment that it's not them, and yet sometimes lack of confidence or other limiting beliefs that are not allowing themselves to, not allowing them to put themselves out there.
And is that part of the work you do with people to really help them move through that resistance?
It's the core work. The core work that we do, and my biggest passion for this business, is when we help people build their brand identity, which really is, a lot of people think that it's some kind of a PR creation persona work, and it's not, because that is not authentic. Really, when we help you build your personal brand identity, it really is an inside out process. It's a process of a lot of introspection, because what we're trying to do is pull out something that we can then package into an angle, a concept, a point of view that will give you the confidence to say, yes, I do have something to put out there, gives you that confidence, and then hopefully more of a comfort level of putting yourself out there. So it goes into a lot of introspection, a lot of self-discovery. And most of our clients say that that process of personal brand identity work that we do together feels more like sessions with a therapist than working with a marketing firm, because the goal is for us to understand you understand yourself better. That's how we can pull out that narrative that becomes compelling and allows you to stand out as well.
I love it. So it's not just like a strategy approach you're taking of like, go on X amount of stages or put this message out. You're really starting with the foundations of them as a person, which is
an authentic message, which is the most important part, right? So when someone comes to us, and often when people are hesitant to put themselves out there, and then they decided now is the time, now I'm going to do it. Now they really want to do it. So once someone has, gone through all that journey of convincing themselves and getting other people's feedback, often they hear it from their coach that says you should put themselves out there. They come and they say, okay, let's do it. Social media, speaking, podcast, everything. And we say no, because we don't know what is the narrative? What is the messaging? What is that unique angle? We're going to take 2 to 3 months figuring it all out before we figure out, well, what is the right plan of action? Because also not the same platforms work for everyone, right? It still has to feel authentic. If someone's not comfortable with video, there's a lot of other things that they can do. Someone not comfortable with social media, other things that they can do. So first we figure out, who is this person? How do we package their narrative in the most authentic, inspiring, compelling way? Authentic is the key thing here, because otherwise it will all fall apart. There will be no longevity for them in it. Number 2, what are the platforms that, again, are authentic, make sense to them? We're a lot less audience driven and working backwards. A lot of our competitors will say, well, where's your audience? Where do they hang out? That's where we're going to put you. It's not very sustainable, because your audience might be on TikTok, and I might force you to be on TikTok, but you're a Gen Xer. Are you going to stay there? That is a question. So platforms that are authentic, that is how we build the plan of action. Only then do we start helping them execute, and we help them create content, and we book them on podcasts and whatever other platforms we chose for them. But it starts with that inside out work first.
I love that, making it what kind of seems right to them. And you use the word like authentic. And that was I was going to ask you a little bit about that, because around like what platform should they go on, because there's there's so much out there. There's like podcasts, which I personally prefer, or YouTube or Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn. Which one do I go on? And it's like this can create this overwhelm, right? But you're helping them identify what's the right one for them as a person.
Yes, and also drawing a line between, are you planning on being an influencer, or are you planning on being a thought leader in your industry? Because when you're planning to be an influencer, you have to be on all the platforms. You have to be everywhere. You have to create crazy amounts of content. It is your full-time job. However, if you are running a business, you're a CEO, you're a business owner, those are the only people that we work with, your full-time job is leading the business, or maybe, going through the process of exiting the business, whatever your journey is. You are not looking to become an influencer, but you want your thought leadership to support whatever your professional goals are. In that case, you don't need to be everywhere. You don't need to create a ton of content. You don't need to be very personal and, overly vulnerable. You need to be authentic. You need to be consistent. But you can choose 1 to 2 platforms, be consistently there, and that will be enough. So it's also important to keep a different audience in mind. We often will hear someone like Gary Vaynerchuk, for example, whom I follow and consume a lot of his work, but a lot of his recommendations are more in the influencer style persona who's looking to monetize their name in some way or monetize their craft. When we talk about CEOs, when we talk about business owners, it's a different strategy altogether. And that becomes also important when you're looking to partner up with someone to help you build your personal brand or your visibility or your thought leadership, however you call it. It's important to choose a firm that understands the difference between the two and caters to one versus the other. It makes a huge difference in the selection of the platforms, the quantity of what you're doing, the amount and the overall strategy as well.
No, thank you for outlining for me personally. I'm sure that the listener as well, and many people listen to this, the difference between an influencer and a thought leader, and what is it you're trying to achieve.
It's very important. And however, they're both rooted in the need for authenticity. Now, a lot of people might disagree with me and say that we know of many people who put themselves out there and they're not authentic. But I do believe that at some point it catches up with you. So one thing that, someone like Gary Vaynerchuk, who caters to influencers and more of that style of a person versus us who work with CEOs and business owners, one thing that we agree on is the foundation. It does need to be rooted in authenticity. And in order to be authentic, it's quite an overused word these days. And I realize that. But in order to really put yourself out there as your true self, so that there's no delta, so that when someone hears you on in an interview or watches your podcast, they meet you outside in real life and they say, oh my God, I feel like I've known you forever. You're the exact same guy or the exact same gal. In order to be able to achieve that, you need to know who you are. You need to do that internal work. And then you need to be very clear on what side of yourself are you going to be putting out there, right? Because we can also be very much ourselves, but we're complex human beings. We can show very different sides. When we create clarity in our personal brand identity, we make decisions on what are we leading with? How do we want to be perceived? How do we not want to be perceived? And that makes a big difference. So I think whether you are building your visibility as a solopreneur, influencer, thought leader, business owner, that foundation applies to everyone and is key.
What is authenticity for you? How would you define it?
It truly is being yourself in public and for there to be no delta of the persona you're showing and who you really are. The biggest compliment that you can get is when people meet you and they say, oh my God, I feel like I've known you forever. Oh, you're exactly the same as ... I've heard that many times, and every time I hear it, I rejoice. And it's very difficult to do, as much. And often we think authentic means a nice person. We think that authentic means, nice and kind. I bring Donald Trump as an example often because I think he's one of the most authentic people that I've ever observed. Doesn't mean it makes him likable or, not polarizing or, this neutral personality that everyone finds kind and pleasant, but he stays true to who he is and stays true to himself. And I believe that that's a very important quality, but it's a risky one because when we truly show who we are and people critique us, criticize us, reject us, don't like us, they're not disliking a persona. They're disliking who we truly are. That's very hard to do. So one, it's rooted in a lot of self-awareness. Two, it's rooted in a lot of self-acceptance. And then three, a lot of confidence that it's okay, not everyone's going to like me, not everyone's going to love me, but people who will, truly will, because I'm showing who I very authentically and truly am.
I think, with authenticity, for me personally, even when I don't agree necessarily with the person, or maybe there's some parts of, they do, I don't agree with, there is a little bit of at least they're being authentic to them. There's always that level, tiny bit of respect that you kind of think, at least they're being authentic to themselves.
I think it's key. And I think that but it's difficult because we are living more and more in a society where we seem to be encouraged to think the same, act the same, express the same opinions. And whenever we, deviate, then we get demonized. And that's really hard and that's really difficult. There's also this big push towards, if you have any kind of visibility, you have to opine on any matter that currently is socially loud. And I disagree with that as well, because I think it's not authentic if something has never been a topic that you have ever associated associated yourself with that now you need to jump on every bandwagon. But there is a push towards that sameness in our society right now. And I think it takes a lot of courage to be yourself, not succumb to the sameness, and take that risk of truly being yourself, putting yourself out there and taking what comes as a result, which is mostly benefits, but some small cost to pay sometimes as well.
Sometimes I guess I've caught myself being just going along with things and not even questioning it like in the past, and it's like, oh yeah, you kind of lose track of what I think or what I believe, and I know many other people have told me that as well. So I like how, again, your foundation is about the person really discovering who they are and who they are as a person. And that kind of leads me on to the next question, really. As someone who's very lost, they don't know who they are. They're like, oh, I've heard this and I'm just so lost. Kind of, where can they start, that person out there who might just be so lost in who they are?
So I think the baseline, if someone really has no idea, nowhere to start, would be a coach. We have a lot of people who come to us after working with a coach who said, well, now we got to a certain point. Now go work with a personal branding agency that can help take it to the next level. So if the person's completely lost, no idea. However, if that's not the case, if someone, for example, knows, well, I'm the owner of this business, I don't know, I'm a father, mother, I care about my community, and has some kind of a baseline, get into understanding the narrative and going deeper and pulling out things that are interesting and compelling, that is what a personal branding agency helps with. A real personal branding agency, the one that doesn't start with execution, but starts with that inner work and going deeper and doing that analysis that I told you sounds and feels a little bit like psychotherapy. If someone wants to do this work on their own, and they're thinking of where can I start? There's an exercise that works really well. We do it with all of our clients, and it's called Lifeline. That is where you map out all of the most significant moments of your life, significant to you. This is a difficult exercise for overachievers to do because they think significant means, I don't know, award, graduation, some kind of a milestone. I don't mean that. I mean significant to you, something that was emotionally significant, and why. The highs and the lows. You map all of those out, and then you look for common denominators and patterns. When I did that exercise, I saw that to me, everything, my sad memories, my happy memories, and I'm saying as a pattern majority, of course, they will not all 100% connect, but had something to do with being silenced or having a voice. So either being penalized in school because I was too outspoken, or I spoke in Saudi Arabia at the largest conference in the Middle East. Low, high has to do with voice, has to do with standing out and being myself or suppressing myself. And that's when I realized that to me, that idea of standing out and speaking up was core and crucial to who I am. So that exercise helps. You map out those highs and lows. You look for patterns and common denominators. And it gives you a lot of insight into who you are.
I like that, like emotionally big events. Also good how you pointed out high achievers, not trying to just point out the awards and things like that, but really looking at that definition of what's happened in your life and who are you at this moment.
It could be anything. It could be you were 5 years old and the kid took away a toy and you got really upset. And why did you get upset? Because if you still remember it, there's something significant there. And maybe it's because to you being able to, I don't know, maybe you were anti-conflict and being able to always get along with everyone's very important. So those little things, it can be very small, but if it's something that you still remember, it means emotionally it's resonant. So taking note of all of those and then looking for a common denominator.
What's a personal brand for you? Like we've said it a few times, but just kind of like defining it for someone.
It's an expression of who we are. It's really an expression of who we are with very clear and consistent associations. Really, it's the same as any brand, right? If we think of a corporate brand and we think of, Volvo, Apple, we're both going to have similar associations and kind of similar clarity of what that brand stands for. It's the same thing, but just applied to human names, human name. When someone hears, Johnny Pardo, when someone hears Marina Byezhanova, what is the association that you want them to have with your name? What is the association they now have with your name? That is your brand.
Okay. It's actually quite simple when you put it like that.
It's very simple. And then it comes down to your brand recognition and how many people actually, know about your existence and have that association with your brand. That goes down to brand equity. But really, if you're thinking about how you want to build your personal brand, It has nothing to do with social media. It doesn't have to. It all depends on goals. I deliver many presentations to executives who will never be on social media, at least not for the foreseeable future, unless they're forced. They work in large corporations and that rather anything but. So when we talk about them building their personal brand, in this case, we'll call it leadership brand, we talk about how they want to be perceived uniformly by their peers, by their stakeholders, by their employees in the huddles, in the offsites, and team meetings. So it doesn't have to be necessarily a public persona. It can be who you are, not on social media, not on stages, but starts with that consistency of association. So personal brand can be that too, associated with social media, but it doesn't have to be.
Do you have many people you work with who just don't use social media?
No, not many people that we work with, many people that I deliver workshops to, so they understand how to build their brand identity. And then sometimes they will come to us and we help them build their brand identity, but then we don't do any execution as far as creating their visibility, because that's not what they're looking for. They just want clarity on who they are, who they stand for, what they stand for, and having then using that in their own private circles. But typically, if someone comes to us and they're ready to work with an agency, they're looking for more visibility than that. We do have some clients who are not active on social media, but will actively guest on podcasts, for example. And that becomes their form of visibility, so that when you Google their name, something comes up, so that someone asks about them in LLMs, the newest thing, and something comes up. So that is sometimes another lane that we see. Sometimes we see people, having a blog and writing long form content and really not leveraging social media much, or just using it as a repository, just, an update. Here's my newest article. That happens too. And none of it is wrong. It all depends on your goals and objectives. If you're looking to just, a little place where you can have your voice and refine your voice, blogging is great. If you want for stuff to come up if someone searches for you, then podcast guesting is great. If you're looking to build a wider audience, then social media is great. So there's no one size fit all. And I really often am in rooms where when I say you don't have to be on social media, people relax, then they listen to what I have to say, and then they decide they want to be on social media. But just because they feel that they won't be forced, they're open to the rest of the conversation.
That's interesting. Yeah, and there's so many different ways. And what is it for you? Like blogging is a way, podcasting, guesting, which is a very popular one, as I know. Speaking to many people is like people like to do that. Some of social media, it's awesome. So thinking about someone when you really help them pick out their like personal brand or understand who they are as a personal brand, and then they're like, okay, right, I know who I am and what I stand for. But then they start comparing themselves to other people. Do you get a lot of that at all?
A lot more before we define their personal brand. Okay. And they feel that they will not be able to stand out because they go, well, what is it about me that's so particular or special or interesting, etc. Johnny, the most beautiful moment of our work is when we present the personal brand identity to the person and we read their brand story to them. Just again, to understand, these are all remarkably successful individuals. We work with CEOs and founders of large organizations, global organizations. They are incredible. And yet, when we read them, their brand story and their brand angle, time and time and time again, they choke up. Wow. And they say some kind of a variation of, wow, I'm really badass, or wow, is that me? Like, are you like, is that me? And we made up nothing. We just put it all together, pulled it all out, because we all see our own story as this, right? We're inside a forest. We are able to zoom out and make it all cohesive. We create nothing artificial. And yet they all go, oh, wow, yes, that's me. The most powerful moment of all the work that we do. So after the fact, of course, sometimes they'll still compare themselves to others. Usually it's not anymore with, oh, that person has something more valuable to say, because we've covered that with them. Often it's with vanity metrics. Here are two people and they get a lot of likes on LinkedIn. And I'll go on these people's profiles and it's all bots. And you can tell a little less now because now everyone's a bot commenting using AI. So now it's hard to say who just has bot-like followers that use AI to comment or who actually pays bots. But you can see when someone has, fake following, fake engagement. And then we have to break the news to our clients. So usually it's more so the comparison is typically on the basis of vanity metrics at that point, more so than someone else has something more valuable to say, or I don't belong, or I have nothing of value.
A really interesting point, and thanks for kind of sharing that. Of actually, before they have that personal brand, there's quite a lot of that comparison and that person's doing this, who am I? But actually, the personal branding work really helps them understand who they are as an individual. And I guess like no one could be that same person.
Yes, and they are fascinating. And I personally find human stories are just remarkable, so interesting. It's our job, again, to package it in a way that's really compelling. But we've had people that have come to us before they became clients, and we felt there's nothing that we can package. It was too soon for them, or they were too closed off, and everything seemed very performative and surface. And we did not work with those potential clients. We told them that we're just not the right fit for them. So when we do take someone on as a client, we are already excited and pre-excited. One of our core values at Brand of a Leader is we are in awe. So we're already in awe of them. So then it just becomes not so hard to pull out all the incredible stuff that they've got going on and package it. But they don't see it. So being able to hold up that mirror and help someone see it is truly quite remarkable. And, we've had some people say that to them, it's a pre-working with us and post-working with us, because we help them not only package their identity or bring it into their awareness, but also legitimize it. Because often people will say, oh, I'm often criticized for ABC. Let's create a different persona, a different angle to counterbalance that. And we say, no. If you're often criticized for something, there's something interesting and juicy there. We're going to go all in and we're going to package that. And then you're really going to stand in who you are. And that becomes very liberating for them. So instead of struggling or trying to hide their true self, it becomes liberating for them to be themselves and to embrace that. That's a really powerful thing to be able to do for people as well.
Going into those difficult sort of moments, those moments where they're criticized. Interesting.
Which is the hardest. And that happens, right? And we have a lot of people who say, what if I had one client in particular, and he kept saying, every call he would say, well, what if I put myself out there and people don't like me? And what if they criticize me? And then he comes on one of the calls and he says, Marina, I spent, the whole of last week thinking about it and meditating on it, journaling on it. And why do I think people are not going to like me? People are going to love me. Of course they're going to love me. Why are they not going to love me? And he goes in this whole monologue telling me why people are going to love him. And no one's going to dislike me and no one's going to criticize me. Why would they? Right? And I go, I said, I can't lie to you. Of course, the more you put yourself out there, the more there's a chance that some people won't like you. And when people don't like us, they tell us, especially on social media. They said, no, actually, I'll be honest with you, chances are high. The good news is that people who are critical or vicious or negative or finger pointing, they're such a minority that they're overshadowed by people who are going to be inspired by you, that are going to be impacted by you, that are going to maybe be moved by something that you share. And how much more powerful is that than one person who has nothing better to do in their day than sit there and say something nasty?
Yeah, I like how you pointed out that actually it's not going to be rainbows and sunshine and everyone's going to like you and the realistic nature of that. But actually also seeing the other side, that it's not going to be all bad like someone might think as well, like constant criticism and everyone, the right people want to hear you, want to be inspired.
Yeah. And then, inspiring others is also a key motivator, hopefully, for putting yourself out there. There are people that come to us and say, help me build my personal brand so that I can sell more of XYZ, so that I can, I have courses, I have programs, I have workshops, I have retreats, or whatever the company does, more product. And that's a misguided approach, because we feel people like that who are all building funnels and shoving something down our throats, and it's not inspiring. And it doesn't work as well anymore. So what we always tell clients is let's start by thinking how you will inspire people, how you will impact people. As a byproduct, all of the financial ROI will come. It came to me, it came to Brand of a Leader. We do zero outbound sales. We have no funnels, we have no newsletters. Terrible for a marketing agency. However, on the other hand, all of our clients are all inbound. They find us from across the world. We're among the top recommended results in LLMs, page 1 of Google search, all completely organic through thought leadership. However, so the ROI of thought leadership on the financial side is there, but people feel it when you're there to make a buck and that's your only motivation. And yet people feel it when you're there and you're on a mission and you want to help or impact, you are inspiring in some way. That is the main the main motivator. When someone tells me, I had a client that told me that she was running through an airport in the US, I remember what city, she was on a trip, not even her hometown. And this young woman stopped her and she said, oh my God, I can't believe it's you. I've been reading everything you share on LinkedIn. I'm so inspired with your leadership and your core values. And I learned so much from you as I'm growing in my own career. And thank you so much. What's the value of that? Yes, our client is incredible. We help her build visibility. She's invited to speak here, be on board seats there. But that moment where a younger person says, you know what, you really teach me so much without knowing, that is priceless. There are people who see value in that and are motivated by that. They see a lot more success putting themselves out there than people who are just thinking, how can I sell more and how can I self-promote?
That is valuable. What that one, that client experienced. It's great to hear, like, just any kind of feedback at all. I remember when I first wrote a book and I had one comment and the person was like, oh my God, thank you so much for writing a story on this. It was just like, you just get that, wow, making an impact.
It's priceless. And it's easy to get lost in how many books did I sell and how much money did I make? And of course, and we're all business people and we all want to make money. And I think money is great.
Practical.
But that one comment, just that one comment, when someone writes that, that gives purpose, that gives meaning. Money is great, but that to me is priceless. So thank you for sharing that, and that's cool.
Yeah, that's cool. And your client's example as well. And yeah, sounds like you're not saying, practically people run a business as well. They, need to make that, but it's a byproduct of the inspiration that you're trying to put out there to help people share things. So yeah, for the person who's maybe so caught up in like metrics and like achievements like money or followers and those kind of things, and then they're like, maybe I need to review this or reevaluate this differently and I need to look at more inspiration. Do you ever find someone who struggles to find that inspiration when they switch to that?
It's very difficult because the core switch there is from leading with what you do to leading with who you are. And that's a difficult switch to do on so many levels. One, you think, why is it relevant? Maybe it's irrelevant. Two, okay, but who am I? Now you have to do all that inner work to figure it out. Three, how do I make it relevant to my business and what I do, right? Because we don't work with the influencers. We're not working with people who are just going to be, telling their stories. It has to be connected. So that shift is difficult. And often that is what people come to us with. Often we do have people that come because they've been putting themselves out there and doing things, but kind of not seeing any traction or not seeing the point of it. And then we go back to, let's figure out who you are before connecting it to what you do. What you do is core and important because we start with business goals and why are you putting yourself out there for your business goals, but rooted in who you are. And often, when I talk to fellow business owners and they say, but why is that your approach? Why does it matter? And I say, but are you defined by the business that you own? Or are you more than that? And they agree that they're more than that. And then also I tell them, when you put yourself out there and you build your visibility only on the back of what you do, what happens when you sell that business or when you lose that business? You don't have an identity anymore. You don't have a personal brand anymore. You lose all of it with it. So personal brand needs to be rooted in who we are. Very difficult mindset shift for people to achieve. And what we do becomes one of the things that we talk about, but not the only one.
Yeah, not being your business and metrics, because that can be up and down, but actually rooted in who you are. I like that.
Because that becomes more inspiring. The thing is, for people who only tell their stories and don't connect it to anything business related or intangible, that can at some point become fluffy. People who only talk about business and only talk about what they do, that becomes dry. When we can merge the two, then there's that merge of being inspiring to people and interesting to people, being compelling, standing out, and also achieving your business metrics. So that's the balance that's important to achieve.
I want to kind of go down a different route. I know you've got your brand of a leader and you've got like a big team who are sort of, supporting you to get out there. Like, how do you deal with like kind of demands of all the clients you're serving and all your teams? Like each day, is there kind of a lot of reminding yourself of who you stand for each day?
What a great question. So on one hand, we're extremely process oriented and we're exceptionally structured, even for a creative firm. And so as far as serving clients in that regard, everything runs as give or take as can be with working with demanding human beings as a well-oiled machine. But yes, I do have to stop myself sometimes and not get lost in the financial ROI of our clients' goals and remind myself and then also the team as to what our why is. Very recently, for example, I started feeling that I wasn't as inspired by some of our clients. And I started feeling that, well, we're so caught up in helping them achieve their financial objectives, but that is not the core why we started the business. And our core value, one of our core values, as I said, is we're in awe. But if I'm not in awe of this client, and if my team is not in awe of this client, then what are we doing? And we parted ways with some of our clients. And it felt nerve-wracking and scary, as it always does, because on one hand, you don't want to lose clients because that's revenue. On the other hand, you don't want to demotivate the team of why we're letting clients go. And also, on the other hand, you don't want them to go and write bad reviews on you because you did the unthinkable and let them go. But it just, the energy that creates when you're able to just go back again to the why. And we are here to help people tell their stories. We're here to help people inspire. We're here to help people impact and get financial ROI, not the other way around. But I do need to have those moments of truth with myself and remind myself and then remind the team and share inspiring stories of our clients and our team Slack channel to just constantly go back to what really matters to us with this work. Personal branding, a lot of people think that it's rooted in fakeness, and it's not a phrase that many people like. So we say, visibility, putting yourself out there, leadership branding, but the core remains the same. It's putting yourself out there, telling your stories, sharing, and hopefully impacting a lot of people along the way.
I thank you for being honest and open about even you have to remind yourself of going back to your why and what you stand for, and you can get busy in the day-to-day world, and there's practical stuff, of course, your metrics and all those processes and things like that. But yeah, it's rooted. It sounds like it's rooted in your why and really wanting to help people and lining up to help people who are very much looking to share their voice and really understand them as their personal brand as well. That's powerful. So Marina, I know you've got a lot of things you're doing at the moment. You're offering a lot of services. You've got a team together and really making an impact on the world. So as we kind of wrap up today, I'd love to know, where is the best place for people to reach out? They want to go into their personal brand, kind of know a little bit more about what you're doing there. Yeah, love to know where's the best place for them to find you. And if there's maybe a final message that you wanted to leave us with today.
Of course. So number one, our website is brandofaleader.com. I'm sure you will link it under the episode. We're very transparent on the website. All of our pricing is there, all of the packaging, so nobody has to guess what is the investment of working potentially with a personal branding agency. It's all there. Also, if someone is interested in knowing, well, what is their personal brand like now? What is their digital footprint right now? I invite them to connect with me on LinkedIn and ask me to run a personal brand audit for them. And that crawls, of course, does Google search, crawls their social media, also crawls LLMs that now are probably biased with your own inputs, but this is third-party LLM search. What comes up when people search you? What are some of the gaps? What are some of the opportunities? I'm happy to do it for your listeners at no cost. And the one message that I would leave people with, my favorite thing to say in my tagline, and someone asked me if you had a billboard, what would it say? It would say, stand out, speak up, and be radically authentic. I think we live in an era of censorship and self-censorship. We're all censoring each other all the time, and having the courage to stand out as your true self, to speak up, to say what you think. I think it's crucial for our society. It's crucial for us as individuals. And there are firms like mine that can help you with that, where you can do it on your own. But that is my final message for people listening today.
100% speak out and be who you are. And yeah, Brand of a Leader is a extremely valuable place to support you with that. So Marina's links are in the show notes below, as we mentioned. So both the website and her LinkedIn, so you can get in touch and take her up on that very generous gifting you gave us there. So thank you. So yeah, just go into the show notes and click those links to do some more work on yourself and get that support. So Marina, thank you for all the gold you shared today. Thank you for helping people share their voices in the world. Really enjoyed having you on today.
Thank you for having me, John.
Absolutely. So that concludes our episode for today. And remember to lead with your heart and not with fear.